Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to episode 20 of Pop Culture Quick Bytes. And welcome back. So on today's episode I'm going to have a look at the Zzap 64 Annual 2020, released by Fusion Retro Books in 2019. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with the Zzap 64 brand, this was a really popular UK Commodore 64 magazine that started roughly in the mid-80s and went on to the early 90s. It was super popular in Europe. I used to read this magazine all the time. I got a lot of information from it, especially on game reviews and stuff like that. I really loved it. It had a good sense of humor about it, was written well. Sometimes the reviews were too harsh on games, but whatever. But this annual was funded through Kickstarter. I was one of the backers. They did one the previous year, so they're kind of bringing the Zzap brand back. I'm assuming they're going to be doing one of these every year, ongoing, hopefully. This is very nice. This is 120 pages full of Commodore 64 content. There's reviews for games from the last 10 years or so that have come out, just like in the previous annual. There was stuff obviously they didn't review in there, so they got in here, plus all the new games from 2019, or most of them are reviewed in here, which is very nice. Tons and tons of articles on Commodore 64 stuff. So because I was a Kickstarter, I got a lot of extra stuff that came with this. I'm not going to show that right now, we'll show that at the end. We're going to focus on the book now. This book is available for you to buy if you weren't a Kickstarter. I'll give you all that information later as well. So let's first jump on over to this excellent Oliver Frey cover and check it out. So if you don't know who Oliver Frey is, he's one of the original founders of Newsfield. They were the publication that published Zzap 64 magazine, Crash, and a whole bunch of other classic 8-bit magazines from the 80s. And he was also the artist who did all the covers for them. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at the contents page. So yeah, we got a whole lot of articles based on like documentaries that are being made, making of games, etc. Here is more interviews with people about different Commodore 64 subjects. Up there is like old Zzap 64 kind of articles being redone, and down here is the reviews, all 26 of them. Okay, so a lot of the annual is obviously video game reviews, Commodore 64 reviews. Like I said earlier, it's mainly games from the last 10 years and especially the last year, 2019. They got a ton of games reviewed in here. So let me go through and show you exactly how they set out their reviews. So here's a review for La Vie en More, my favorite game of 2019. So up here you got the name of the game, you got double-sided games, the guys that published it, and it also gives you the year. The main bulk there is all the story elements of the game to set it up. Yeah, you got 3 individual reviews by 3 different people, so it gives you 3 different takes on the game. And the scoring system works. They rate it on presentation, graphics, sound, hookability, lastability, and then an overall percentage. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought Farming Simulator was completely abysmal. And here's the one for The Darkness. I still haven't got to play that, 2014 release. And Icebox Plus, very cool little game, you should check that one out. So just like the previous annual, they've got a lot of the original Zzap crew back together to do reviews. Also got veterans that have been working in the industry, whether they were back in the day or now. You got classic reviewers like Julian Rignall, Robin Hogg, Andrew Fisher, all contributing, so you know that the quality of the reviews are really good. So this book is just jammed with Commodore 64 information. Obviously the reviews are the bulk of the book, but for me I've played most of these games, so I still like read over them and they're pretty interesting. Some good takes on some of the games that I've played. But my personal favorite reviews or articles in this book are the ones that are about individual Commodore 64 subjects. A lot of new stuff was all covered, like the 8-bit symphony and all stuff like that. So I'm going to run through some of my personal favorite individual articles in here. This isn't going to be every single one. There's so many in here and they're all really great. I've read this thing back to back already. This is just some of my personal favorite ones. So this is a fun little article about the making of the Steampunk Commodore 64, chronicling everything to do with how it was made, plus the joystick. Very nice. This is the games that Zzap forgot. This is basically a collection of games that Zzap just never got to review back in the day for whatever reason. So it's interesting to see their takes on them now. I can't believe they never got to review Garrison. It's a really cool Gauntlet clone. Yeah, Cytronic, the story of Cytronic. They're the guys that have been putting out Commodore 64 games for well over 10 years now. Excellent quality stuff like Steel Ranger, Soulless, Barnsley Badger, etc, etc. It's a nice story of their origins. Free 64 article. This is a interview with Vinny Manolfi. He's the editor and creator of Free 64. It's an excellent Commodore 64 fanzine. I'd highly suggest you check it out. This article is called Sid Effects, and Sid Effects is basically Chris Willock. He talks about how he got his Commodore 64 set up with a multi-SID system. He goes through all the details on how he did it and the advantages and what it brings to the Commodore 64. Also look at the Sid Effects albums he puts out through c64audio.com that are all free, by the way. You should definitely check those out. This is the adventure section. This was always my favorite back in the day. This shows a whole bunch of text or graphic text adventure games. There's a whole bunch of new ones here. They also leave links to them so you can find them quite easily. And on the next page, we got a whole bunch of reviews for classic text graphic adventure games, even like The Hobbit there. Here's Ultimate, play the game on the 64. I'm actually planning a video on this, so the timing is pretty ironic. This is just discussing all the games that Ultimate put out on the Commodore 64, which are all very specific or exclusive to the C64 even. Emotep, which is terrible, and the mediocre Outlaw, but a lot of good ones too. This is Zzap Flash. This is like games that are coming out soon, hopefully. Like Alien, Neoplasma, never even heard of this before. It looks freaking cool, can't wait for that. And the top right there, you got a little preview for Doc Cosmos 2. Top right again, you got Guy in a Vest, I've been looking forward to that one. Wolfling also, this is a 2019 game. I never played it because I always felt like it would look like it was incomplete. Apparently they're releasing a special edition with a whole lot of extra stuff in it this year, so just as well I waited. I'll have a full review on that when it eventually comes out. And yeah, some excellent Oliver Frey art to end off the whole tome. Little advert for Cytronic, great stuff. Okay, so what are my overall impressions of this annual, the 2020 version? I think it's just as good as the first one. The quality is great, it hasn't wavered whatsoever. The quality of the pages is just, you can hear that, it's quality, it's printed well, very nice, it's sturdy, hardcover, excellent. The writing is just as good as it's always been. If you're familiar with the original Zzap 64 magazine, it feels like you're reading it again, just in like a massive condensed form, but it's really well done. It's set out nicely, everything just looks good. I even like the adverts in here because they're doing adverts for like new stuff, so like new companies that are making Commodore 64 stuff, so that's always awesome, like, you know, adverts for Cytronic games and stuff like that. So as far as I know, this is going to be like a yearly thing. Probably see the 2021 Kickstarter or something coming up at some point. So hopefully this carries on. I just really love it. I love the whole condensed form of it. So if you weren't an original Kickstarter and you want to get hold of this book, check out Fusion Retro Books. I'll show a little bit about the website here. They've got a ton of other excellent books as well to check out. Commodore 64, Amiga, stuff like that. So these are just some of the little perks I got with being a Kickstarter. So it always helps out to do this. You get a lot of cool stuff and also gets the product made. It's a map for Dragonspire, the game that was made in conjunction with the book. Here's a nice calendar also got for 2020. Also got an issue of Fusion. This is an exclusive like kind of Commodore 64 one. Fusion usually does all games from all formats. This is just, I guess, a whole collection of Commodore 64 articles and stuff. So they also put out the Fusion fanzine magazine, so you can also check that one out as well. And thanks for joining me, Bastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'll see you next time. Cheers.